Okay, this talk is going to be, is organic worth it? Is it worth your while to bother to buy organic food and to eat organic only? I'm of the opinion that yes, it is. And the real question is why? And by the way, there's like some of the most famous, the absolute best nutritional doctors, experts in the whole world will tell you that they don't think organic's that big of a deal. Fair enough, and I understand where they're coming from. Their attitude is if we could only get people to stop eating meat and oils, they'd have a dramatic improvement in their health. And that's true. And it's also true people routinely get dramatic improvement in their health just by no longer eating anything that comes from an animal, including no dairy and not eating any oils. That's like the biggest step up you could make. And not a little bit of meat and oils, none, zero. So to go 100% vegan, okay? But I'm making the point that I don't want to stop there. I want to make everything as good as possible, to optimize things as much as possible. And that's kind of what my whole YouTube channel is for, to help people who are motivated, educated, and really want the best possible result. And one of the reasons why I believe it's worthwhile to do additional things like eat only organic is because of chemicals like this, glyphosate. And I gave a separate lecture where I went into detail about all the problems with it. We're not going to go into all that detail today, but I just want you to be aware of it. That other lecture is available, and basically it mimics glycine and it's thought to be able to substitute out for glycine in proteins and cause protein dysfunction in that way. And the other lecture goes into all the details, but the bottom line is it's much worse. It appears to be, based on the research, than it was previously thought. One thing it's thought to do is inhibit succinate dehydrogenase, which is part of the electron transport along the inner mitochondrial membrane. You don't want anything that's a potential mitochondrial toxin to be ingested in that. That's where your energy comes from, and you need that energy to do everything in your cells. Okay, now we're going to go into, is organic worth it? I think that the major toxicities in non-organic food are from the herbicides. There's other problems, and it's not just GP, but we just talked about GP. It's also atrazine. There's also the adjuvants, additional chemicals that are mixed in with these. The major primary active ingredient, for example, in Roundup is glyphosate, but there's a whole bunch of adjuvant chemicals that are thought to potentiate it. Most of a person's calories should come from starches, and maybe anywhere in the ballpark of 50 to 90%, and then fruits after that. And some people eat tons of fruits. That's great, but fruits are kind of expensive. Vegetables, they're very healthy, but they don't usually have enough calories to satisfy your hunger. And luckily, starch is cheap. You can feed yourself quite cheap for that. And I know the cost of food is going up, so my advice would be keep it simple and eat a lot of starch, and you can feed yourself at a reasonable cost and be as healthy as possible. Organic farms are supposed to undergo annual on-site inspections by the USDA to make sure they're following the organic guidelines. Most important thing is no GMO and the herbicides and pesticides associated with that. So we'll just go through question and answer here. Is all organic food okay? No, lots of organic food is junk food. Fried organic food, potato chips, sweets, stay away from that. Can MSG be in it? Yeah, there's tons of MSG in organic foods because, glutamate's a naturally occurring amino acid, so it can be under lots of different names. I got several separate lectures about that, and you should avoid MSG. And basically, the easiest way to avoid MSG is don't eat any processed food. Zero. None. When you go out for a restaurant at a special event, you won't be able to avoid it that night, but on other nights, don't touch the stuff. When there's only one ingredient in the food, basically, the best foods have no nutrient label because you're just eating an item. You're buying some beans, you're buying an apple. Can organic contain GMO? No, there's not supposed to be any GMO, genetically modified organisms, in organic food. What herbicides are forbidden with organic? Well, they're not allowed to contain atrazine. That's a strong estrogenic herbicide that's often used on corn. They're not in golf courses too. They're not allowed to use glyphosate, which is also often used, especially on soy. One thinks of it for that purpose. These are super common herbicides. It's also estrogenic. There's concern that some herbicides in non-organic food are associated with increased risk of lymphoma. GP is potentially associated with that. That's the thing being talked about these days. What other pesticides? Well, in general, there's just more pesticide residues on non-organic food, and these can cause other problems, potentially can contribute, for example, to Parkinson's. Organic also means that they're not allowed to use human feces as fertilizer. So there's a lot of little benefits like that for organic. You're supporting the organic farmers, trying to grow food in a healthy way. And even if a food's not GMO, it could still have GP sprayed on it or other stuff. As long as it's not organic, they have a lot of leeway to put all kinds of stuff in that food that you don't want. Do you know for certain that truly organic foods are 100% free of GP? No, you don't know for sure, but there could be a little wind drift or something, but it's pretty minimal. They've tested people's bodies for pesticide residues, herbicide residues, and they're much lower in persons who eat organic diets, dramatically lower. Okay, we already talked about all this GP stuff in my GP lecture. Okay, do companies sometimes cheat on organic? Sometimes they do, but usually not. And the reason I can say that usually they don't is because multiple different studies have been done to check the pesticide and herbicide residues in people eating one way or the other. And it's been reliably shown that the ones eating the organic usually have much lower pesticide and herbicide residues. I know some female doctors who say to me, oh, organic's BS, I don't believe it. Well, both of them have problems with their weight. They're not happy about their health. I'm like, become a vegan, you'll be a lot happier. Don't ever eat fried food. Okay, I got a bunch of separate lectures on omega-6 cooking oils. They're a disaster for health, okay? Some countries follow the rules more closely than others. Yeah, I wouldn't buy food from China. I don't trust their food production process. They have so many problems with contaminants and pollution. No way. There's an interesting book, Mike Adams' book on food forensics is all about food contaminants. So that's a good book. This book here is a good one here. It's all about the herbicides in non-organic food. Okay. Do organic foods contain more nutrients? A little bit, but not that big of a deal. That's not the main reason you want to eat organic. What's the proof that organic is better? Like I said, when you test the food, they have less of it. And they're thought to have lower risk of cancer. And all the problems that those herbicides cause, that in the long run, they're going to be healthier. They're statistically speaking. Oh, what's going on with Russia and organic food? This one's something that's almost kind of funny and sad at the same time. Putin had said that he was going to try to make Russia the leader in the world for organic foods. And Russia, according to him, has not planted GMO crops since 2016. And the Senef lady, the one who wrote this book here about the problems with herbicides. And I can just tell you, when I was growing up, Russia was sort of like the enemy of the United States in sports competitions and the Cold War and all that stuff. And basically, we had this contemptuous attitude of Russia. It was like commie shithole, a godless commie shithole. Okay, we thought the place stinks. Basically, the Russians were screwed. They're trapped in eternal serfdom. And we just considered Russia beneath us. We knew they were great at sports, but that's because their guys were like professionals. Whereas our guys, our wrestlers, and our other athletes, our weightlifters, they were true amateurs, okay? And, eternal serfdom in Russia is like the T.S. Eliot quote. If you will not have God, and he is a jealous God, then you should pay your respects to Stalin. And if you don't like it, too bad. That's just the way it happens in society, okay? Russia stunk at everything. They stink at art. They stink at music. They stink at science, okay? That's why we called it a shithole, okay? And so I say that to you because the only thing good that came out of Russia was their athletes, which were really professionals. They're great wrestlers and weightlifters. And then the only literature worth anything was the stuff that criticized the place, like Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak or Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn. And here's a Solzhenitsyn quote. Just as King Midas turned everything to gold, Stalin turned everything to mediocrity. A great disaster has befallen Russia. This has all happened because men have forgotten God. Atheism was at the core of the Soviet system. Atheism is what makes it possible. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he lived from 1918 to 2008. So that's the point. Once a person's designated, like in a Darwinian point of view, as just being, a talking primate, they have no rights, none, zero. And whether they like it or not, that's just a fact. And that's why rulers a lot of times don't want any religion, because it creates like an additional perspective. Okay, now getting back to the Russian, now why am I going through this? Because Russia was down here compared to the United States. You know, just this terrible place, and that's why everyone's leaving Russia to come here. Nobody wants to go there. And the reason I say that is now Russia's claiming that they're going to have the best organic food in the whole world, and we've got like the most heavily pesticide sprayed food production. So what I'm saying is our food quality is dropping while theirs is going up. That's not right. Ours should be going up. Okay, and so like here's an article that Putin wants to become the world leader in organic food. And it's sort of pathetic that they're potentially better than us at something. All right, is organic worth it? If we are at a restaurant, how can we minimize our exposure? Only eat plant foods, avoid the ones that are often GMO. Okay, fine. What plant foods is it especially important to eat organic? You can go to EWG, environmentalworkinggroup.org, and they've got the dirty dozen list of stuff that's more likely to be contaminated by herbicides. So especially if you get non-organic, and like a spinach leaf, for example, you could read their site. And I wouldn't eat a grape. The skin is too thin. I worry about whatever's sprayed on it getting inside of it. I wouldn't drink wine either for the same reason. I don't like celery, all the ridges, how are you going to clean that? A strawberry, how are you going to clean that? Forget about it. What foods are especially low? You can look at EWG's list, but you get an organic food, something that comes out of the ground. It's not going to have as much sprayed on it. What about cadmium? There's more cadmium in non-organic foods. It's a heavy metal toxin, also a mitochondrial inhibitor. What are the disadvantages of eating organic? Well, it costs a little bit more money, but there's a big advantage in being healthy. Low fat, low sodium vegans, they almost never get sick. So you save a ton of money that way. And if you're that healthy, my whole goal of health is to be so healthy that it's a waste of time to even get a checkup, okay? I say that because if you do that, you'll save a lot of money, you get a lot of peace of mind, you avoid all kinds of problems. And if you're eating meat and oils and junk food and all this processed food after 50, you're guaranteed to end up on a bunch of pills and going for surgery. I don't want to take any pills. I don't take any medicines. I don't want to get cut open with surgery, okay? By living a healthy lifestyle, you avoid all that stuff, okay? I don't go to the dentist. I don't have to go to any doctors. I'm healthy. You look at these centenarian countries, Dan Buettner's National Geographic Blue Zones, they might never go to a doctor, until they're 100 years old. Okay, you got to eat the diet and live the lifestyle, though, if you want to get those types of results. And some people are unfortunate and they get sick, but the vast majority will be very healthy if they follow these sort of guidelines on health. Okay, what about the environment? Organic's better. What animals are fed with GMO crops? Lots of them. Cows, pickings, chicks. What foods have GMO version? There's a whole bunch of them listed here. Are GMOs safe? And if you listen to Senef and other people who study it, they think that GMOs have not been proven to be that much of a problem. So I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't eat them, but what they really think is it's the herbicides, the GP and the atrazine sprayed on the GMO food that's the worst problem. But I worry too. What are they going to put into that GMO? I mean, if they can put all these chemicals and properties into a plant food, what else are they going to put in there? Who knows, Let's see. Some scientists are quite concerned about the risks of GMO. There's plenty of videos. If you go to this one YouTube channel, Real Truth About Health, they got a lot of videos about GMO food, about herbicides like GP and atrazine. So if you're interested in that, that's a place you can get more information. Okay, is organic worth it? I think it's worth it. I've had plenty of lectures on soy. I don't want to talk about that anymore. I think it's a bad thing to eat. I recommend 0 of that. For my previous lectures, I'll explain why. What's the bottom line on organic? I recommend only eat organic. And the main reason is to avoid all the herbicides and pesticides that are significantly worse in non-organic food. And that's, I got one last slide. I think I got some references if anybody wants to see them. So if anybody wants, here's some references. That's the book by Senef. It's a good book. Food Forensics, kind of a quirky book, but it's interesting. And then here's just a couple papers on it. So I hope that's helpful.